I love journalists, and it's like I've got such a great heart for you. She made us wear these T-shirts that said "Mommy does it." Mommy was Mrs. Merkel. It's where I am right now. I mean, it was a keep-up story, and I hoped it worked well. Thank you so
No, it
much for
did.
having me.
Hi, I'm Preston Bates here with Dave Atherton.
Hello.
Dave, we're here with MEP from AfD in Germany, Markus Buchheit. Hi,
Very nice
Marcus.
to be
Welcome,
here.
welcome,
Thanks a
welcome
lot
to
for
our
having me.
show. Thank you for joining
Our
us.
pleasure. Thank you. Yeah. First question, if we can. Let's get straight in. Used to be a member of the Christian Social Union up until 2016. Why did you move on from there to join the AfD?
Well, I used to work for the Christian Socialist Union, their CSU in
Yeah.
Bavaria, which
Yeah.
was, a very important party down there in Bavaria, because they used
Mm,
to have up to 60% at times. It was something not unusual to see them with more than 50% at least. And they used to have iconic figures like Mr. Franz Josef Strauss as Minister
yeah.
President of Bavaria, Edmund Stoiber, and so on. And I used to work for that party in 2013 and used to work there in the team. We were like, I guess more than 100 people working there in collective campaign with federal elections and Bavarian regional elections. And Mrs. Merkel came down to Munich, and they made us wear these T-shirts that said "Mommy does it," and Mommy was obviously Mrs. Merkel.
Yeah. Butaro.
And
Yeah.
by that time, it used to be Conservative Party, the CSU. By that time, we already got rid of military service of our nuclear power plants. Fukushima was in 2011, if you remember. I mean, you
Yeah.
know how many tsunamis we have in Germany there, so we got rid of our nuclear power plants.
Sure.
We had gay marriage already coming up. Not to discuss gay marriage, but we had many, many conservative issues that were not protected by the party anymore. And I knew
Yeah.
we needed to have something new.
Sure. I think it was 2015 that Angela Merkel opened the gates to the
Yeah.
immigrants from the Middle East and North Africa. Was that a factor in your defection to the AfD, or was it domestic politics?
Yeah, there was a catalyst to everything. But the fact of not having a conservative party in Germany anymore, that
Hmm.
already materialized before.
Yeah. So it was more ideological than anything else. Yeah.
Yeah. Also,
Yeah.
so sometimes even we are ideologically.
Okay, I got to say, Marcus, I'm very, very surprised that you said that. I really thought you were going to attack Angela Merkel for her immigration policies. You know,
Yes, obviously. Ah, yeah, surely. I mean, but yeah, that is a different point. It's not so much about the CSU, it's about this person, in particular
yeah,
about the chancellor. She's, by the way, I'm in the northern part of Germany right now. She's living not far away from here, so I have to be careful what I say, otherwise they might throw me out. But
you get the Stasi
obviously,
round.
what Mrs. Merkel did was the last final step in the suicide of this country, obviously,
Yeah,
but many, many smaller steps had already been taken
yeah.
before.
Okay, and one very quick supplementary question to that is, what do you think has been the effect of mass immigration to Germany since 2015?
It's horrible. It's just, we used to be a country with a well-working social system.
Mm.
Used to have social security here, pension system that was working,
Yeah,
doctors, hospitals that were working, and stuff like that. That's one thing, that our the health system is not working anymore. Schools are not working
mm.
properly anymore. Kindergartens do have problems. You try to get an appointment here. People tell me about they want to get appointments at psychologists, for example. They need to wait for 3 months until they get an appointment because the whole system is not made for so many people and so many trauma. I understand it. They might be traumatized, yeah, perhaps,
Sure.
but nonetheless, the whole system is not made for that. So there we want is one factor. The second factor is it creates an enormous amount of cost because it was that social system that people came here for. They
Yeah,
want to profit from the system
yeah,
they never contributed to, nonetheless, they want to profit
yeah.
from it.
Sure,
And the
sure.
third thing is obviously the whole security
Yeah,
situation in our big
mm,
cities, and not even only in the big cities, also in smaller cities. People
sure.
getting stabbed, Christmas markets that
Yeah,
you can't do anymore. You need to do under enormous
sure.
security
Yeah,
stuff there. So that our
yeah.
life has deteriorated in a great extent here, and we need to be careful not to end up like a lobster, that gets spoiled in the water.
Yeah, sure.
Or is it a frog? I think it's the frog.
It's
So
the
yeah, you
frog.
bought in the frog.
It's the
Yeah,
frog. It's not
yeah,
the lobster goes the other way around. It would be better
Lobsters
to
can't
be the
jump.
lobster
Yeah.
here.
yeah.
We would
Go
like
on.
to eat boiled lobster, but speaking of boiling a lobster, did Angela Merkel boil herself when she admitted to the world that basically she subverted the peace process with Russia and Ukraine with the Minsk proposals. And what do you think about that? When her massive revelation that the whole thing was subterfuge, so that basically NATO and Ukraine could just keep rearming and knocking on and pressuring Russia on their doorstep. How did you respond when she made that massive revelation earlier last year?
To be honest, sometimes you have the feeling with Mrs. Merkel, I didn't have it so much. I thought she was weird and she was like the daughter of a Protestant priest and stuff and wanted to help the world and is sacrificing country for that. Okay, that was one thing. But now more and more I get to the point where I say, she's nuts as well, as so many others around me, as so many people from the Green Party, as the lefties and stuff like that. I mean, for one part, she goes there with Nord Stream pipeline, Putin's best friend and stuff. And then on the other hand, she does that. I don't get it anymore. It's very difficult for me to put sense in all that.
What's the security situation like with all the Ukrainian refugees in Germany? Because I know they're obviously in Poland. There's a lot in the UK where we're talking to you today from
Mm.
London. What's the domestic reaction to all of the Ukrainian refugees? Do you think they're going to leave? What does AfD think about all those refugees?
I mean, let's say you ask firstly about the security situation. So they are not making a big mess here. They profit from the system. These are the ones who come here to have their teeth redone and stuff and go to the dentist and have it all for free suddenly, driving around in the big cars and stuff. So as long as these guys profit from the system, everything is fine. They're not making a big mess. They just want to suck up the money and that's it.
Sure, absolutely.
Might be
Uh,
exceptions, have.
Actually,
I
very briefly, I did read that out of the intake that came in from 2015, 50% are fully
Yeah,
or
better.
wholly dependent upon the state, or partially on the state
Yeah.
in that time. So,
And moreover, I read that very few Ukrainians who've left Ukraine would intend on returning. Does AFD have a policy? What's the AFD's policy towards
I wanted
refugees
shortly
generally?
to come to a different point as well, because if you look at the
Please.
situation in Poland, for example, in Poland, it's the other way around. The majority of them is working, and very well integrated in society. Might be a linguistic question, if the languages are quite similar, might be for other reasons. I, I don't care if we talk now about Ukrainians or about others. These guys don't leave by their own intention because they want to leave. It's people where we really need to cut the subsidies and say, okay, enough is enough. You're going home now. The situation is
mm,
cleared up. You're driving, or for a different reason. You might say you're driving around in a Mercedes G class. Obviously, you're not such the real definition of a refugee by any kind.
well,
Um, we need to put sense into this country again, and that starts with the migration system, obviously, and that doesn't only affect Ukrainians, but many, many other countries as well.
Is
sure.
that why you're such a skeptic of the EU generally? Just because of the open border policy between all the EU countries? Tell us more about the motivation
Yeah,
between
I,
your.
I, I believe you're quite a Eurosceptic.
No, 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 no. That's
Oh,
I'm not so skeptic about the European Union because on the migration issue or anything like that,
yeah,
because it's a bunch of crazy people sitting there having power suddenly. That's why I'm skeptical of the European Union, and because of the system that gives power to these crazy people, and
sure.
that's you know this is the center of politics against people.
Absolutely.
Um,
Go ahead,
yeah,
please. Please.
yeah. So
Okay.
migration is one aspect, but I'm rather in the industry and economics sector there. So these are my main committees. You can't deal with all the you can't deal with the whole globe of crazy things coming from Brussels. So everybody has
Sure.
his little chapter, and my chapter is typically industry
Yeah.
and
Sure. Okay.
economics.
Well, talking of economics, from what I can work out, the GDP growth of the EU is fairly sclerotic. It's very slow. What would you put that down to?
We have examples of how economies can work. If you look at Milei, for example, in Argentina,
Yeah.
if we look to the US right now, if you look, I mean, you might even take China with it.
Mm,
We know for a fact that planned economies like the Soviet Union, like Moscow in 1989, didn't work. And they didn't work for a good reason. We had people who got Nobel Prizes because they explained us why these systems didn't work. Nonetheless, we got people in Brussels who tried again. I
mm,
remember 2 weeks ago, I had a socialist colleague of mine who was there at the plenary speech right before I was speaking. And he explained why the German economy, the German car industry was in such a bad shape. He said, because your cars are too big, you need to produce smaller cars.
Oh,
I said, isn't that crazy? Yes, the politicians here even try to tell the industry and the car producers what kind of cars to produce. And you've got these people sitting there in Brussels and doing exactly that with the Green Deal and with other projects, for example. These guys try to establish a planned economy, and a planned economy does not work. And this is exactly why we have the enterprises and the companies leaving right now. Yes, on a smaller scale, it is because of the energy price, it's because of the bureaucratic burdens, because of all that stuff that's coming from the European Union. But if you go to the macro level, it's because these guys think they're fucking Soviets and fucking communists and living in the 1980s, and they think
yeah,
they can do as they want. And that's if I look at Argentina,
yeah,
the leftist press here, they can't understand what's going on in Argentina. They can't understand that suddenly you get lower rents for the apartments, for example, because you lift laws, that were banning higher rents before. They don't understand how markets work. It's completely against their
yeah.
interest.
My understanding is Millet got rid of all the restrictions on renting your property out because of the very high inflation over there. And apparently, with the more liberal policies, there was something like 226% increase in the amount of property that was coming on the market. And because of the extra supply, rents went down by 25%. It's regulation
So,
is,
so
is a kind
you're
of.
not a lefty. That's already good because you understood how it works.
No, no, economically, I've always considered myself to be a classical liberal. No, I'm just confirming that when Millet did actually liberalise the renting laws,
Yeah,
there was an increase of 226% in supply of rental properties, and because of the extra supply, there was a 25% reduction in what people were paying as part of rent. Now,
exactly.
in Britain, they're doing the exact opposite. They're tightening it up, and people are selling up and moving on. There's
I
less
mean, why
supply.
would you even invest in private property anymore? I
Yeah,
mean, you see, you can't even do with it what you want. I mean, the basic definition of your own property is that you can do with it what you see
yeah.
fit, no?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things, for example, in Britain they've done, which is going to be an absolute killer, is if you have a 2-year contract on 2-year contract on your apartment or flat or whatever, at the end of 2 years, or 6 months before the end of your contract's up, you might say to your landlord, do you want to extend it or do you want to get rid of me or whatever. Now the Labour Party over here is looking to say you can insist upon staying on in something like that. It's absolute madness. People have entered into a contract freely and openly, and they want to stop it. So, actually, I know one of your areas of expertise is art.
You get different countries, you got different parties, you got different names with always the same shitty ideas. That's the
Yeah,
funny
exactly.
thing.
Yeah. Well, I believe you're an expert in Central and South American politics. What effect overall has Milei had on Argentina? How has he made it better? Are there things that are worse under him?
Well, I mean, you had some basic problems there, and that the most well-known problem was the inflation, obviously. So there
Yeah,
he's doing quite well, cutting down inflation. That's one point. That's the obvious point, what everyone sees. But I think there's a deeper sense. Because how did they do it? He
yeah,
realized quite fast that you need to lift laws,
yeah,
you need to deregulate if you want.
yeah,
Something that's unthinkable here. I mean, we
yeah.
always talk about deregulation, but they don't want to do it
Sure.
because they know that they profit from it
Yeah,
because he makes it all, intransparent. You can put your guys there in the various posts and stuff. You can create a new commission, da 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 da.
yeah,
And he realized that, and he got rid of all that. So
mm,
what I like quite a lot about his approach is not only that he was able to decrease inflation and thus
yeah,
help people. He was able to improve the rate of apartments, for example, and
sure.
housing and stuff.
Yeah,
But also that he realized that his real enemy is the state in the sense of the institutionalized state.
yeah, yeah,
All
indeed.
these
Yeah,
guys profiting in their
yeah, indeed. Yeah,
NGOs and all these surrounding little cancer cells that
sure.
surround the government typically,
Yeah,
which was, I mean, a tradition of the Kirchnerist era before.
yeah,
And he realized that. And if you don't dry out that swamp, you're going to get into even
yeah,
bigger trouble afterwards. And I
sure.
think this was his real, or is his real battle. He's still
Yeah,
fighting it.
indeed. Yeah,
Got
yeah,
rid of a lot of employees and the
sure.
people and stuff,
Mm.
but he also realized that you need to get rid of all these, of this how do you want to call that, even this ecosystem that has
Yeah,
developed over
exactly.
the
Yeah.
last
Well,
60 years.
Well, I guess as well, Marcus, that a lot from my experience in Britain anyway, a lot of politicians go into politics simply because they like being in control and they like bossing people around. You know, they've sort of got a dictatorship complex about them. You know,
We can do a special episode about psychological issues with a lot of my colleagues there. It's terribly interesting what you see there. I'm not even talking about the sexual stuff there, but you know, it's it's crazy. It's crazy what you see. You're absolutely right. There's so many
absolutely.
freaks there.
Yeah, I know. I can imagine. I think you might have been there when the British MEPs were there. Did you ever have much to do with them?
Ah, come on. Having beers in the evening with Nigel Farage, having a cigarette there, talking about his Volvo and how he goes, I don't know, what did he do, fishing and stuff. It was gorgeous. Yeah. I
Sure,
miss these times, because it wasn't only Nigel who was there. We
sure.
also had Marine Le Pen back in the time. We had Salvini from Italy.
Yeah,
Do you
yeah,
remember that, how that was? You mean there
yeah.
was something going on there? Now we
Sure,
don't have these characters anymore. But
sure,
I miss actually all my British colleagues a lot. I mean, I'm
sure.
happy for them, but on the other
Yeah.
hand, got less entertainment now.
Well, what do you want to do? I'll pass on your compliments to Nigel Farage, shall I?
Excuse me?
Sorry, I'll pass on your compliments to Nigel Farage, shall I?
Please do so.
Okay. Well, I was going to say, Marcus, I wish you were British. You know, you can stand there off Parliament anytime you like.
Yeah.
So, Marcus, tell us a little bit more about the role of deindustrialization and what seems to be planned deindustrialization of
Mm.
Germany. Obviously, the GDP is in retraction. The Germany basically is the anchor of the EU, and how this plays into the wider stability, not only of the EU and the EU integration, but the European Central Bank and the EU as a currency.
Oh, yeah. I mean, these are so many topics right now because if you talk about the currency and the euro right now and the industry, you also need to talk about France and their deficit and stuff. And I mean, how do we do it in a broader picture? Okay, the basic problem is you've got people taking industrial and economic decisions for example, they talk about cars and car industry. They never change the fucking tire on their cars. They don't know how to do that, but they talk about the car industry. That's just it's ridiculous. So this is where all the mess starts. People talking about things they have no clue how they actually work, no interest even. They believe factories, these are things where you have gray smoke, brown smoke coming out. We want to get rid of factories. This was the Greens in the yeah all through their history, and the CDU took a lot of that up as soon as Greta Thunberg was coming out. Greta Thunberg came, I think, in 2019, something like that, and she was the new iconic figure that, if you want to be the holy apostle of all these green ideas, Fridays for Future, and all that stuff that suddenly came up, and they realized they got a new image from a marketing image, if you want, and that was the green ideology. Let's save the planet, and this is how everything started. How the Green Deal, remember Ursula von der Leyen called it the European Man on the Moon project, came into being. Absolutely crazy. You should never forget that people like Manfred Weber from Bavaria, from the CSU, who now talks about rescuing the automotive industry, he was there in the first place, and he was I saw it, taking selfies with Greta Thunberg. Yeah, and he was the one saying we need to get rid of the combustion engine by 2035. It was exactly the same people that now suddenly come up and try to save our industry.
Sure.
So, was there really, you said there was a plan behind? I do not know if there was really a plan behind it because now suddenly they try to rescue the industry with completely crazy ideas, Keynesianic ideas, suddenly putting billions and billions of euros into our defense industry, in order to cover up the mess they made during the last 5 years or maybe even 10 years.
Sure.
But is there a plan behind it? I would wish there was a plan behind it because, like, they would give them the credit of having some intellectual component there. But sometimes I really have the impression these guys are just messing around. They
You
really
think they're
believe they
ignorant?
can they can make the world a better place, the locomotive theory of European Union running forward and the Chinese following, with a carbon footprint is bullshit. Yeah, it's
Mm,
utter bullshit. And now we see what's happening. This is the problem. If you never really grew up, you're still in your mind a child with all your naivety, and suddenly you end up in politics and you think you will make this place better, this world a better place. Suddenly you got them there, and it's horrible to see that. I'm sure you don't believe me right now, but I see it every day. I see these guys, young green lefty politicians who really think that the Antifa is a wonderful institution, that it's fine to attack somebody with a hammer and stuff like that, and that it's really possible to get rid of all our industry, and the states are still working. No, that's not
What,
the fact.
why do you think
Yeah,
they are so naive and stupid?
it's I got a little daughter. She's 2.5 now, and I knew that
Bless
educating
her.
a child is can be difficult at times. I don't know if it was this 80s laissez-faire education or what. I don't know. I'm not a psychologist. One thing I regret that. For another thing, I'm happy because otherwise I would, nod my head the whole day because of the things I see. But on the other, I would really be interested in the question if Germany, for example, you might do the same like Great Britain. If Germany was one single person, what illness does it have? You know, that would be,
Neurosis.
if I was a psychologist, that would be an interesting idea. I can't tell you
Mm.
what's going on here.
Schizophrenia, perhaps. I think it used to be in the 80s that the central question around politics and economics was too much government, not enough government, kind of Hayekian, Misesian
Mm,
type philosophy. Now it seems to be whether or not the nation state should even exist. We're kind of transcended out of classical liberalism. And
Mm.
so back to that question about the ECB, the issue is can the there's discussions, people like Alex Jones on InfoWars are saying that the plan for the ECB and the EU is war bonds. It's a 20-year
mhm.
war with Russia, break it up, strip all of its resources and all of its minerals, issue more debt, that way they can save the EU as a project. And so I'm curious, what's your reaction to that philosophy? Because it doesn't seem like classical liberalism and classical liberal economics is going to be the solution to try to create and resuscitate growth. And if Germany's in recession and France is in recession, what actually is the EU? What's the future of it in 3 to 5 years?
Mm. I mean, the whole war bond plans and stuff, there is no restriction in their thinking. They might come up with every crazy idea in order to save the project European Union and the project Euro. So they may come up in that direction, but they might. There was what was the wealth register. What do you call it? Register in English? Where you need to put in. I've got 1 kilogram of gold at home. I've got these and these art pieces of art at home. My house is worth, I don't know, 250,000 euros and stuff. So they might go for that direction with the war ones, or they might go directly to the simple citizen. Might also be possible. But what we know is they try to save this project at all costs, and that
Sure.
should already give us something to think about, no? If the European Union is so fucking important to them, why is that?
Sure.
Um, in our thinking, might include three of us. You know that liberty, that freedom is important. You know that little systems like the EFTA with Liechtenstein and Norway and stuff being part of it is much more effective when we talk about international trade, for example, than the European Commission is in Brussels, although they ever only have 1% of their employees. So we know that sometimes a smaller institution can handle certain things better. You have more democratic, how do you say that, relation towards your citizens, for example, and towards your people, than being in your anonymous little castle of Brussels. If you're sitting in Berlin or London and stuff, you have your votes, you have your direct democratic feedback from the people. This is something they don't want. So they don't want all that. They don't want accountability. They don't want transparency. This is why it's so important for them to have Brussels and to keep that system running. Surely also for materialistic reasons, because like that they can keep their people in payment. No, but yeah, we have to be open for everything. It's their life project. Their lives is seriously also in very in an elementary state. It depends on the project European Union, but it's not a
Oh,
peace project. That's the important thing. It's us who need to tell people it's not the reason is not peace why they want to keep that project alive.
Real quick, Marcus, following up on that, the current
Do I actually
geopolitical.
answer any of your questions, or do I always lose myself?
No,
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 no, no,
no,
no,
no, no. You're doing great.
no, no,
Just
no.
real quick, because the current geopolitical topic that I think is most pressing in the EU is this emerging revolution or between Central European countries against
Mhm.
Brussels pushing back. It's not just Viktor Orban and Orbanism now. Now it's Robert Fico and Slovakia. It's other people pushing back. It seems to be that there's now a coalition where there's now a rival center of power away from Western Europe into Central and Eastern Europe. Can you comment on that?
I think that's mainly the Visegrad countries.
Yeah, the Visegrad. Can you comment on that? What are you seeing? What's your experience like? Are you seeing kind of a revolution and a new center of power forming, a new bloc?
I would like to see that because you know, competition is everything, isn't it? Also competing ideas and the
Yeah,
exchange of the free
sure.
exchange of ideas is something very important. But well, we are in Brussels still. So I was talking to the Slovak ambassador, new Slovak ambassador. She's been in Brussels now for about a month. And well, I can't go too deep into detail, but it was difficult for her getting integrated in Brussels. She said it was very difficult coming from the Fico government in Slovakia and then getting in contact with certain MEPs, for example, in Brussels.
Sure.
You know why? Because they are not open for discussion and they directly know where to put Mr. Fico, Mr. Orban, and all the areas
Well, they
who don't
shot
fit their
him.
ideas.
They shot
Huh?
him. That's why they
Yeah,
shot Robert Fico, obviously, like 7
Yeah.
times.
yeah.
So that's why I'm asking you, because you're saying they don't want to let go of their fiefdom. But, you know, it's always in defense of democracy. We're so sick and tired of hearing everything's in
Obviously,
defense
don't
of
forget that
democracy.
if they kill me, it's defense in defense of
If
democracy,
they
surely.
shoot us, exactly.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, do you think there's real opposition in the EU at the moment from the Visegrad countries and elsewhere from the centre right?
Promise I wanted to go there right now. Yes. No, I'm afraid that's not really the case because you lost Poland, for example. Poland has become quite leftish now as well. That's a big, big problem. I see that. And
Tusk.
when we now, for example, in April, I've been to Hungary. It's gorgeous. I mean, I don't know if you ever talked about it, what
Mm.
they're doing for families, young mothers and stuff, how
Yeah,
they really treat these people.
yeah,
I was surprised in such a, I've never seen, there was the guy cleaning the street. He was treating my daughter like a princess. I've never seen that before. Not in Germany, not in Belgium, not anywhere. It was
mm.
gorgeous. Unbelievable politics going on there in Hungary. And
Sure.
Slovakia obviously is similar. But we need to empower maybe not these countries, but these ideas. We need to give
Mm.
them, you know, their voices to be heard and stuff.
Yeah,
We need to
sure.
really bring out their ideas because what they think about family, about conservative traditional values, how a society is working, for example, what role the family has, that is something we can learn from a lot because we
Sure.
have degraded quite a lot, haven't we?
Well, indeed, obviously, I think Europe has a particularly bad birth rate at the moment, and I think Viktor Orban has actually tried to address that, hasn't he? You know, through the
Yeah,
taxation
yeah,
system.
we're still lacking the real results. He's doing better than us, I can tell, but I think there's still improvements being made. Doesn't matter,
Mm.
you will see the results in the end. I think the intention sometimes counts as well.
Yeah, indeed, absolutely. Well, yeah, yeah. No, no, I was really hoping the Visegrad countries would really sort of lay down the law to the EU, but I presume because of the because of the population and voting and things like that, they probably can't do it day in day out. But no, the other thing was the other point I want to say as well, Marcus, is I'm so glad Britain left the EU, and I despise Keir Starmer for trying to edge us back in again.
Yeah.
It's the most obnoxious thing. So
I'm happy. I'm really happy for you. I said it before. I miss my British colleagues a lot. Or my, the, you know, all my colleagues from there who was the rebel ones at least.
yeah,
But nonetheless, I'm happy for you. Now you
yeah,
can
I
take
know.
your own choices. You know,
Yeah,
you don't
sure.
have Ursula von der Leyen telling you how to run your industry.
Well,
Yeah,
speaking of threats and the EU, what do you think's the greatest threat? Is it that there's going to be this 20-year with Russia, and that's going to be the economic salvation, or is it somehow that the ECB is collapsing and now they need some sort of central bank digital currency, and they're going to say, you know, with Macron telling Starmer, "Oh, you can stop the boats, but just use ID checks so we actually know
Mm.
who's coming in." Where do you see the greatest threats to liberty coming out of the EU right now, and what should we all be paying attention to if we're listening to this in America, Australia, Africa, Asia, wherever?
So we know that leftish movements, socialist movements, always like to go together with authoritarian movements. So they don't like transparency, although they claim they like it. You know, they like transparency, but they like the very transparent citizen. That's what they really adore. You know, having this social credit point system, like in China, might be the end goal. Then finally, I don't know. But we see right now the establishment of a digital currency. Yes, I see that as a very, very big problem, and also the creation of a the real transparent citizen. I mentioned before already this wealth register and stuff, trying to find out how many bitcoins you owe and how your wealth situation really is. Um, so you have these little movements there. I don't, and obviously you mentioned the 20 years war with Russia before. How do they argumentatively tell us that this is the right way to go, the digital currency, for example. They tell us it's because of the threat from outside. I mean, that's essentially all game. You know, we are threatened by Russia, and therefore we need to improve these and these laws,
Yeah.
and thus reduce our freedoms. Remember Corona the Corona crisis back in the days. It was exactly that we need to limit your liberties because we need to fight this disease right now. It's
Sure.
always the same argumentations, and people fall for it again and again. And that's what I don't understand.
Sure.
I believe, and that's something we said as a party already a long time ago. The euro will be the death of the European Union, and I hope that's true. I
And why do
mean,
you think that?
obviously, we're not able to I don't know, I said destroy them. I shouldn't say that anymore. I was told recently, but we are not to constructively change the
Actually, Marcus,
European Union.
indeed, Marcus, there's one topic I really particularly would like to speak to you about, and that is social media online censorship. Lots of
Aye.
lots of my ex-post says this has been withheld from Germany. I wonder what I'm talking about. In Britain, we have the Online Safety Act, and I think obviously you guys have got your own censorship of social media as well. What kind of effect is it having? And are you worried about Donald Trump, imposing sanctions and dealing with the EU should the censorship get that bad?
I don't know how far you know that Mrs. Alice Weidel, the head of my party, was trying or spoken
Yeah,
to or having a discussion with Elon Musk. You remember that?
yeah,
With
yeah,
I don't know how
yeah,
many it was, like
yeah,
50
sure,
guys from the European Commission
yeah,
sitting
sure.
there trying to find a word that you said they would
Okay,
cancel it. So they love that, dictatorships, authoritarian regimes, they love censoring opinions and words and stuff. That's great.
yeah,
Now we have chat control coming up. Chat control, another very good example. At Telegram, for example, Signal, WhatsApp, and all these things. So the European Commission should have the right to go through these messenger
yeah,
services in
yeah,
order to see if you are not secretly dealing with child pornography and stuff.
sure,
Okay. What do you say as a politician? What do I say? Oh, yeah, surely we want to go against child pornography. But in the end, it's not about child. It's like in so many other cases as well. It's for being able to look into your formally
yeah,
protected
yeah,
conversations with other people. And
sure,
why would you do that? What's your motivation as a government to do that?
yeah,
And then surely they say, no, that was never our
sure,
intention. It
okay,
was technically possible. It's
yeah,
just a side effect,
yeah, absolutely, yeah,
But nonetheless,
yeah,
so they try to go into your private messages. And on the other hand, we as politicians from the AfD, we have real problems getting into our publicly funded
yeah,
public media in here in Germany. I'm not only talking about television channels, but
yeah,
also radio channels and stuff, even about newspapers. The Socialist Party owns
yeah.
around 25% of all newspapers in Germany. Thanks to you British, by the way. You rearranged that in 1945. But
I'm sorry about that.
yeah,
No,
and so we are dependent on social media, and they know that. And so
yeah,
what they're going to do is not only trying to limit the ways of financing ads, for example, but surely in the end also like cutting down our messages or the messages themselves by censoring them.
yeah, sure. No, that sounds absolutely appalling. That does, and that's exactly what they're doing over here.
Yeah.
We had the same situation where, well, it's all about child pornography and not exposing youngsters to to certain things, and
Which is
and really they just ended up censoring decent normal posts.
which, David, is just what Marcus said. There's always some transcendental, national,
Yeah, no,
global threat
yeah,
that they're using
yeah,
as some sort of front to then go ahead and do
yeah, sure,
totalitarian things to your average law-abiding
yeah,
person.
yeah. What I was,
You don't need to do something totalitarian in there. You can just think about the grooming scandal that I think took place in England, wasn't it?
yeah, yeah,
Where you had
still
several
going on.
thousand people involved, including police officers and stuff. I
Yeah,
mean, why don't you do something concrete for society if you want to go against, child abuse? Do that.
yeah,
Go there, go into these
yeah,
neighborhoods and
exactly.
fucking clean them
Yeah,
up
exactly.
instead of,
Yeah, sure.
you know.
Oh, yeah.
Instead of banning
Yeah,
grandma from tweeting.
exactly. Oh, by the way, where I was leading on when I was reiterating what Marcus was saying was where I was ending up was they were even censoring posts that were aimed at children, how to deal with strangers and paedophiles.
Horrible.
Completely counterproductive. In that respect, that was where I was leading to. Sorry.
Please. Yeah. I mean,
I mean,
Marcus,
yeah, I mean,
go
guys,
ahead.
you're censoring your own flags, don't you? You know, when you
Yeah,
put your
yeah,
flags up on the streets.
yeah. Yeah.
What would be your
Brave, what a
final?
brave new world, huh?
Exactly. Well, that's written here. But what would be your final message to anyone watching this in the UK or in America who looks across and sees what's going on in Germany and with horror and fear and wondering how they can support your cause? What would you tell those people?
You know, we might be divided by languages, by borders, by I don't know, by oceans, but nonetheless, we have a common goal, and that is freedom. And we have common enemies that might be sitting in London, in Berlin, in Brussels, or wherever. And we need to see and we need to accept that we need to take these challenges together, fight together, and win in the end together for the sake of freedom, for the sake of our children, if you want. But
Yeah,
we need to
indeed.
do something, and we need to cooperate internationally in a stronger way than we already do.
Absolutely. A world of sovereign nation states.
What would you like to see President Trump do to support your cause in Germany?
Oh, he did a lot already. I mean, he's giving us, if you want, he talked with members of our party already. He supported us now in the current ongoing crisis with the mayor there in Ludwigshafen, Rheinland-Pfalz, for example, who was not allowed to run. And he was really helping. I take now his whole government, no one say it's Trump, yeah, but
Yeah.
obviously it's his government. He's not doing everything personally, but they're giving us a lot of support, and I really appreciate that.
If Elon Musk is watching this interview, he's very interested in an AfD future for Germany. What would you like to see Elon Musk do to help AfD take a majority in parliament locally?
And please bear in mind he follows me on X.
Yeah. So what would you like? What would your message be to Elon Musk? How can he help AfD take a majority in the Bundestag?
Because I can't talk about cash, can I? No.
Funding, capital F.
I mean, we don't need to talk about changing algorithms or something. The left always accused us that Elon Musk would change the algorithm of X or Twitter in our favor. I mean, we don't need to do that. Just keep his should be open for discussion with us. I mean, if we have a discussion with Elon Musk, for example, that brings us so much. Anybody who's open for talking with us is already helpful because you see, as we talk today, for example, we're the guys with the facts. And if you give us a little platform, we're the ones who win in the end. And that might be Elon Musk, that might be Donald Trump, that might be whoever who has a little bit of reach there out into social media. But we are happy and grateful for that.
Thank you so much, Marcus, for speaking to us today.
Thank you indeed. Thank you, Marcus. It's been absolutely been a great conversation. Hopefully we can do this again.
Shall I show you the place in the end?
Go
Please
on.
do. Yeah, give us a show.
It's where I am right now. I mean, it was a KEBAB store, and I hoped it worked well. Thank you so
No, it
much for
did.
having me.
No, Marcus, we really must do this again.
Please come back and join us again.
Maybe not from here. But
Yeah, hopefully
Yeah.
not. Okay, God bless you.
Yeah,
Thank
all
you
the
so
best.
much. For more, follow David Atherton at David Atherton 20 on X and at Preston S. Bates.